Hare Krishna. So today we are discussing from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3. And this is one of the longest conversations in the Bhagavatam. The Vidur Maitreya Samvad. So I'll write and draw a few things. We explain. Whenever I have to give a 1 hour Bhagavatam class, I try to use a framework which I call as Chit. Chit means that three things. We try to understand the context, what is going on. Then we look at the implication, what is the meaning of it. And then finally, what is the takeaway? What can we learn from it? So let's look at these three things. Let's look at the context, what is happening. Now, when we look at the context, right now, it's a dialogue between Vidura and Maitreya. So Vidura has spoken already. He has asked certain questions. And now, till now, it has been Vidura speaking. Now Maitreya will start speaking. And this is a transition point over here. So it is expressed that in this particular conversation, which actually happens after the departure of Krishna from the world. So if you look at the timeline, the Mahabharata is a huge book. And more or less the Bhagavatam starts in the shadow of the Mahabharata. That means that the events of the Mahabharata have happened, they have cast a long shadow. Not just the war, but the subsequent departure of Krishna. So now the exact timeline is not the most important thing for us over here. But the key point is that there is the event of Krishna's departure. And after Krishna's departure, what happens is Uddhava has been tasked to go to the Himalayas to talk with the sages there. And on the way to the Himalayas, he meets Vidura. And then Vidura asks him some questions. Now, there are multiple reasons given by the Acharyas why Uddhava himself does not answer the question. He feels he is younger. He feels that there is a senior devotee over here. He feels that he has been given a mission by the Lord. For various reasons, there is a brief dialogue between Uddhava and Vidura. And that is among the most direct passages about the remembrance of Krishna or about Krishna that come in the Bhagavatam before the 10th canto. Now mainly if we consider all the 12 cantos, in the first canto, from almost 1.7 till around 1.12, 13 we can say, there is the pastime of Krishna being described. Then in the third canto, chapters 1, 2, 3 to some extent, this third canto also, 3.1 to 3, there is Krishna Lila described. Then of course 10th canto, 1 to 90 is Krishna Lila. Then 11th canto, we can say there is the Krishna Shiksha. But that is not so much Krishna Lila. So Uddhava and Vidura talk about Krishna. Now, when someone has departed from the world, so this is almost like a informal memorial service that we remember the person who has departed. Not exactly a memorial service, but they're just spontaneously remembering. And there is a bittersweet flavor to that remembrance. The remembrance of the Lord is sweet always, but the fact that he has departed from the world, that makes it bittersweet. Now, after the Lord has departed, now Vidura moves on and meets Maitreya. And that is the dialogue that is going on now. Now this dialogue will go on for a long time, and within this dialogue itself, various pastimes will be told, including the whole third canto section about Kapila's teachings. All those come within this particular dialogue. So now when this dialogue is happening between Vidura and Maitreya. So it's like, in life, there is, if we consider life, there are two aspects to it. There is life are the specifics. What happened? Sometimes what's happening is exciting. We go to a new place, we meet some new person, some unexpected thing happens in life. So what happened? That is something which occupies our attention sometime. And the second is the universals. The universals refer to the principles over there. What it meant or what it means. So what happened and what it meant. So in general, for us, when we function in life, we oscillate between these two things. The specifics of what is happening and the meaning of what is happening. So if a person who is normally very calm yells at us, now first of all, okay, what's the issue? Why did they yell at me? Maybe I made a mistake and I need to fix it. So the specifics can be very engaging, very consuming of our attention. But afterwards, we may think, what does it mean? I thought this person was a very calm and cool person. If this person is yells like this, then what does this mean for my understanding of that person? So if that person is a devotee, then do devotees behave like this? If they do, then do I need to reconceptualize my understanding of who is a devotee? So basically, in life, when we talk about learning from life, it is a combination of both. What happened and what it means. Now, if we look at people in general, some people focus a lot on specifics. Some people focus a lot on universals. So now, when they focus on either of these, it's to some extent an expression of their nature. Now, I travel constantly. There are many places I visit only once a year. So earlier, whenever normal question we ask is, how are you? So now we get very vague, non-committal answers. So recently I tried changing the question as, so how was your last year? So how was your last year? Since we met last time, how was your last year? And then it's interesting not only what answer they give, but what they focus in the answers. Like some people will focus on, oh, this happened over here, and this happened over here, and this happened like this. And others will start with assessment. Oh, it was a difficult year. It was a great year. And then, okay, so then it's like all of our minds, they start from the specifics and go, then somebody has to lead us to the universals, or all of our minds, they start from the universals and go toward the specifics. So each of us has our particular nature. And it's not that one is good or bad, but ideally speaking, we need both. That people who are into specifics, they can be great entertainers. Oh, this happened over here, and this person spoke like this, and this was like this. And they can actually create and recreate the entire atmosphere of what is happening. And it's entertaining talking with them. But at the end of it, we may say, okay, I heard a lot of stories. Did I learn anything of value? Now, those who go into universals, you can learn a lot from them, but they can be boring. I wanted to know what happened, and you just gave me a lesson from what happened. So it's like we have news and we have opinion pieces or editorials. So news is about what happened. The editorial is generally about what it means. So why am I talking about all this right now? That this conversation between Vidura and Maitreya is about what it means. Basically, the events of the departure of Krishna have been so momentous, have been so earth-shaking, that Vidura, who is himself a very wise person, who is himself profoundly learned, is now asking questions. So this is where we move to I talk about the context. The context is these questions he's asking. The word used over here is choditaha. Now, choditaha, that here is described that the word choditaha has a positive meaning and a negative meaning. Choditaha can mean stimulated. Mhm. In the 18th chapter of the Gita, Krishna uses the word that karma chodita. We are stimulated, we are activated towards action. But it can also mean agitated. And Srila Prabhupada here uses that translation over here, choditaha. So it's said over here that the questions that Vidura has asked Maitreya, have they agitated him? And Prabhupada, can we decrease this a little bit if possible? Or it's minimum? It's possible to decrease it? Okay, please, sorry. Yeah. So, it's said that he is agitated by the questions. But then Prabhupada says in the purport that he becomes calm thereafter. And a devotee knows the truths of life. And he is going to answer the questions. So now we could go into the specifics of which question, which among the many points that Vidura has spoken has specifically agitated Maitreya. But I don't want to make this into a too technical analysis. Let's focus on the principle over here. See, in the Bhagavad Gita, there is a fascinating sequence. There's 10.8 and 10.9. Now 10.8 is, both are part of Chaturshloki Gita. 10.8 is, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mattah sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. So Buddha refers to the enlightened, that they are enlightened. And yet the very next verse is, Tesham satata, Machitta madgata prana bodhayantaha parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Now bodhayantaha, there are many other words which could be used over here, but bodhayantaha is a variant of Buddha. And it is described that they enlighten each other. So the question arises over here, if they are already enlightened, then why do they need to enlighten each other? Isn't it? Or is it that they are enlightened and they stop being enlightened and somebody else has to enlighten them? No. So actually here, underlying this is the dynamism of bhakti. See, enlightenment is two things simultaneously. Enlightenment is a destination. And it is also a journey. Enlightenment is both a destination and a journey. In what sense is it like that? That enlightenment is a destination in the sense that it is that after exploring many, many objects to love in this world, a soul understands that it is Krishna who is the ultimate object of love. That understanding is enlightenment. Yo mam eva asammudho janati purushottamam sasarva vidbhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. Sa sarva ved. Such a person knows everything. So Prabhupada also quotes with the Upanishad, Yasmin Vijnate, Sarvamevam Vijnantam Bhavati. One who knows this knows everything. So it is said, Sarvavid. Sarvavid, one knows everything. So the point is, enlightenment is a destination in the sense that we understand that among all the objects that we may direct our love towards, Krishna is the supremely worthy object of love. And once that is, Mahatma Anustumam Partha Daivim Prakriti Vachatha Bhajanti Ananya Manaso. Our mana is always going to something anya. Whatever we are doing, it always goes to something else. Right now we are hearing this class, we may think, okay, I have to do this, what about that, what about that? Generally, we often may think, I want to do a service according to my nature. And that's good, we all try to discover our nature. But then we ask our mind, what is my nature? What is the service according to my nature? The mind will have one ready answer. Whatever you are doing right now, that is not according to your nature. The mind will always keep us dissatisfied. Even if we go to paradise, the mind will say, yeah, this is good, but, and it'll have a long list after that. So, anya manasa, that is sankalpa and vikalpa, is always there for the mind. But that stage of enlightenment is bhajanti ananya manaso. That Krishna is the supremely lovable object. At the same time, having understood this, it's just as important to recognize that it's also a journey. Journey, why? Because love is not just a notion. Love is an expression. And when you talk about love, it's not just a notion, it's not just a passive concept. It's an expression. And expression means that there is activity. So there is this journey aspect is many things. One of them is understanding how Krishna loves us. Understanding how should I express my love for Krishna. That is something which we need to keep learning throughout our life. So for a devotee, how lovable Krishna, and not just me, we could say as all of us, our love for him. So this is something which we can keep learning throughout our life. Because Krishna is unlimited. Krishna's glories are unlimited. The situations we face in our life are distinctive. And in those situations, how do we face those situations? So that's something which we all have to learn. It's another way to understand this is, if this is like a vast ocean, and from around here is a desert. So from the desert, somebody has now come to the ocean. So Krishna is like the ocean. So we can go into the ocean. We can, if this is the ocean of sweet water, we can relish the sweet water. But at the same time, somebody else may be going into the ocean from another direction. Somebody else may be going in from another direction. And therefore, how they are relishing Krishna will be different from how I am relishing Krishna, and that's something I can learn from them. So when we say bodhayantaha parasparam, what it means is that this is the aspect of enlightenment as a journey. It's not that these souls are ignorant and they need to be enlightened. They are enlightened and enlightenment goes on. Prabhupada says that Krishna is unlimited. Therefore, even though we know Krishna, we can keep knowing Krishna for the rest of eternity. So, bodhayantaha. So, one key question that every devotee faces in life, even great devotees, is that, how is Krishna acting in my life? How does Krishna want me to serve him right now? That is a question that comes to everyone. So, now if you look at Srila Prabhupada's life itself, Prabhupada was trying various ways to serve Krishna, and he did it with great vigor. But somehow nothing worked. And then finally Prabhupada came across the verse from the 10th canto, Yasyaham anugrahanami harisheta dhanam shanai. That those whom I show special mercy, I take everything away from them. And then Prabhupada thought, is this verse what is applicable to me? And then Prabhupada tells his disciples, and that's what is there in the Lilamrut later on, that he talked with his god brothers and they said, yes, this seems to be what is happening in our life. So in your life, he says. So basically, when we talk about enlightenment being a journey, that means that it is that how is Krishna acting in my life? So, how is Krishna acting in my life? How do I make sense of what is happening in my life in terms of my Krishna consciousness? And what does Krishna want me to do? So, these are some things which we all need to keep learning. And the way Srila Prabhupada presented Krishna consciousness Now there is, in Bhakti, so I'm discussing all about the implication over here. So Vidura is himself a great soul, he's an enlightened soul. But he's asking questions, and those questions surprise. Initially, okay, why would you ask a question like this? But then he understands, okay, this is the context. An earth-shaking thing has happened, and sometimes the same truths that we know, we would like to have them repeated, heard again, because that's what pacifies us. And maybe we get some more insight. Okay, this could be understood from this perspective, this could be understood from this perspective. Just like we have a physical home that we come to. And sometimes we like adventure in life. I want to go to new places, I want to see new places. And that's true. But we also, coming back to home, brings a sense of comfort, sense of security. So similarly, with respect to learning, when we are learning things, for true learning to actually happen, there is the aspect of familiarity. And there is the aspect of novelty. Like, I learn something new and that stimulates me. I learn something familiar, maybe phrased in a new way, phrased with a different realization, and that is reassuring. And in general, in learning, both of these are required. Prabhupada phrased it as old wine in a new bottle. So if it's just the old thing again and again, literally being repeated in the same way, then it tends to become boring. So if we consider, if it is only familiar, then when we are learning, at the same points, if we are hearing every single day again and again, then it becomes boring. But if it's only novel, it becomes discomforting. It can become disorienting. Hey, is this something right? Is it that I don't know anything at all? Is it that everything that I had learned was useless? What is going on over here? So it's like when we are learning, sometimes we want the adventure of going to a new place, and sometimes we want the reassurance of having come back home. So in the process of learning, both things are required. And if, when we are learning something, all that we get is the adventure of going to a new place, then we feel a little lost. Hey, how is this connected with what I knew? How can I apply this? What is all this going on? But if it's all about just staying in home itself, everything that we know, we are just hearing it again, it becomes a bit monotonous. So we will see, in one sense, when Vidura's questions are answered, that in the Bhagavatam, there is this remarkable theme that there are many different contexts. But there is the difference in the contexts is almost breathtaking. We have Kunti, we have Prahalad. Kunti is an elderly lady. Prahalad is a helpless 5-year-old boy. And we have Ritrasura, who is a powerful demon. We have sages like Kardamuni, who is a renowned sage. And there are many different contexts. In terms of context, there is a huge difference in the Bhagavatam, but there's a remarkable consistency in the messages. Either in the prayers, the teachings, the themes discussed. So it's again going back to the same point. If we consider, the contexts are very different, but there is very great consistency in the teachings that are offered. So the idea is that these teachings have a core that is universal. And in that sense, this combination of the novel and the familiar, both of them are required, novelty and familiarity. That's what keeps the learning alive. So enlightenment is a destination. So what is the familiarity? The familiar aspect is, ultimately, Krishna is the supreme object of love. The novelty is, okay, Krishna may express his love in this way. That these are the situations also in which a devotee may be able to express love for Krishna. So the specifics can vary in many remarkable ways. And the idea is that through all these specifics, we sometimes focus on the specifics and learn from the specifics, And we relish the specifics. And sometimes we focus on the universals and we are reassured about the universals. So, now generally speaking, I'll just give an example of how novelty and familiarity can go together. So this is where I'll move forward to the takeaway now. So the implication is that Maitreya and Vidura are having a discussion, and the themes that will be discussed, in one sense, it's Vidura is seeking a reiteration of what he knows with the realization of Maitreya, because he has experienced secondhand, from a distance, an earth-shattering event. What has happened? When I travel across America, I met many Srila Prabhupada disciples. And I have talked with Prabhupada disciples who were present in Vrindavan when Srila Prabhupada departed. And I talked with Prabhupada disciples who could not be in Vrindavan when Prabhupada departed. And I asked them, how did they process that event? Because that is the most difficult event for any devotee to process. And especially at that time, Srila Prabhupada was not just like one spiritual master among many spiritual masters. He was the founder Acharya, he was the sole guide. And it was a devastating event. So whether it is easier to process it when you are there, or whether it is easier to process it when you are far away from it. And then you experience it secondhand. So we can say in one sense, Uddhava was there when Krishna departed. And Vidura is not there. So Uddhava and Vidura have this discussion. Both of them are devoted to Krishna, and both of them are trying to process the event of the departure of Krishna. So basically, my understanding was that it is, when I talk with different Prabhupada disciples about it, including sannyasis, and when I ask this question, what they said is that, I'll give just two ranges of answers, that they said that ultimately it is, while being there, actually increased for many of them a sense of helplessness. That there's nothing that you can do, although you are there. Yes, they can participate in the kirtans, they can help, but there's not so many services to do. The idea of building a memorial and everything came afterwards. At that time, something, for them at least, earth-shattering is happening, and there's nothing that can be done about it. So I said, we pray to Krishna, we do kirtans, but it seems, especially toward the end, Prabhupada himself accepted that I'm going to leave now. And when that happened, the devotee spirits really sank. And there's nothing they could do. And then those devotees who were away, and this broad pattern is that in those days, it was not the days of social media or internet or emails also. So it was generally not so easy to communicate. If you see, Prabhupada also didn't use phones so often. So telegrams were used at that time. So they knew that Prabhupada was sick, but quite often, the fact that Srila Prabhupada departed, that came as a bolt out of the blue. And many of them said they felt that we wanted to go and be with Prabhupada one last time. But for whatever reason, the service was there, this was there, they couldn't go. So ultimately, so there was this feeling of incompleteness that, could have had one last darshan of Srila Prabhupada, we could have offered our respects, we could have asked him for some personal instructions. But then it is not that Prabhupada gave personal instructions even to those who were present. So the idea over here is that when traumatic events happen, whether we are close to it or far away from it, the impact is still there. And sometimes it may be easier to process when we are close by, sometimes it may be easier to process when we are far away. But the fact is, ultimately life happens. And when life happens, we need to deal with life as it unfolds. We could wish that things were like this or things were like that. But, what if? The what if can be one of the most paralyzing questions in life. Because, what if it was like this? What if it was like that? What if I had done this? What if I had been there? So It is very difficult. And this comes up even for a devotee, when a devotee is trying to serve Krishna. We see this. Bhakti is a dynamic combination of certainty and uncertainty. And this is where it's important to recognize that we are all human beings. And human beings, we are finite. Yes, we are spiritual beings, which means we are more than human beings. But even though we are spiritual beings, even when we are completely purified, still we remain finite. And what does that mean? That, say, we are souls. As souls, we are surrounded by our mind. Then we are surrounded by our body. So, as souls itself, we are finite. And our minds and bodies are themselves not the most reliable means of knowing things. And even if our mind and body were completely pure, still, as the soul, we are finite beings. And because of that, what it implies is that it is difficult for us to know exactly, what is Krishna's plan. Now, we can never be sure, is this exactly Krishna's plan for me? And that uncertainty is not necessarily a bad thing. Why? Because it is Krishna who has arranged it like that for us. It is, let me put it another way, we look at Srila Prabhupada's statements. At one level, Srila Prabhupada expresses certainty. When he came to America, he said that, I see temples. I see them filled with devotees. Only time is separating us. That is Prabhupada expressing certainty. But then Prabhupada also said that when he landed in America, he said that, I didn't know whether to turn left or right. Prabhupada said, Ache kichu karya tabe ei anumane. Anumane. He's saying, I'm making an inference over here. In fact, those two stanzas itself, Ache kichu karya tabe. I think you must have some purpose for me. That's my inference. Ei anumane. And what is the basis for that anuman? He's saying, Nahe keno ani bena ei ugrasthane. Otherwise, why would you get me here? So for all of us, when we move through life, sometimes the path ahead may seem to be completely dark. What am I meant to do over here? But the inference that Prabhupada is drawing over here is, Krishna, you have not brought me this far to abandon me now. Nahe keno ani bena ei ugrasthane. That this place you have brought me this far. If you didn't have a plan for me, why would you bring me this far? We can look at our life and see so many things could have gone wrong in our life. But we may say many things have gone wrong in my life. That is true. But many things have gone right also. Generally, we don't say gone right. We think I did right. When things happen well, we think I worked hard. I did this, I did that. Yeah, that may be true. But if you are honest, our hard work alone didn't lead to the right results. There are so many other things that need to fall into place for things to work out right. So yes, there are things which have gone wrong, but there are things which have fallen in the right place also. If we are just alive, that means there is more right than wrong in our life. That means Krishna is not yet done with us. That Krishna has some purpose that he wants to serve through us. That's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells Sanatana Goswami when he says that, I want to end my life in front of Jagannath's cart. He says that, do you think your body is your body? I have great plans for you. So, for us, when we say that for a devotee, there is certainty and uncertainty. Certainty is Krishna has a plan. Uncertainty is what exactly is that plan. So, often we think of Krishna as a protector. And that is true, but if you see the Gita's vision is not so much of God as a protector. See, because Arjuna is a warrior. And Krishna wants Arjuna to fight the war. So when we use the word protector, the idea is like God is the hero and he will swoop in and solve all our problems. But that is not the vision of God that the Gita offers. The vision of God is not so much God as a protector as God as an empowerer. Krishna, yes, Krishna wants us to serve him. Krishna wants us to take initiative, use our intelligence, and do things in his service. The vision of the Gita is not Krishna is the hero, and Arjuna, you watch and how great a hero Krishna is. The idea is Krishna is the hero, and therefore, if you join Krishna's side, Krishna will empower you to do wonderful things. Krishna is a hero, and in the service of Krishna, you can also do wonderful things. You can also do heroic things. So, the vision of the Gita is, because at the end, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara, Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutir, Dhruvanitir Matir Mama. Now, if you look at this verse, why is there any need for the mention of Arjuna over there? Where there is Krishna, there will be victory. Krishna is the goddess of the Lord of the goddess of fortune. So wherever there is Krishna, there will be victory, there will be glory, there will be fortune, there will be power. There will be all good things where Krishna is. So why does it have to mention where there is Krishna and where there is Arjuna? That's where there will be glory and power and fortune and all those things. Now we could say there is a contextual reference. Sanjay is telling Dhritarashtra indirectly. He's answering his question. Kim akurvata, what happened over there? So he's saying what is going to happen is your son's side is not going to be victorious. That's the contextual meaning. But there's a universal meaning over there. The universal meaning is that, in the purpose of the Gita is not simply to proclaim God's position, that God is great. The purpose of the Gita is to transform man's disposition. That God is great, therefore choose to be on the side of God. So the point of the Gita is not just to tell us about God's position. Yes, that is there, no doubt. But the point is much more that what is our disposition? That we become confident that if I am a part of Krishna, I have a part in Krishna's plan. And therefore, let me try to serve Krishna diligently. So the idea is, I'll conclude with one last image. Sometimes we think about humility and its opposite as ego. And there is some truth to that analysis, but it's somewhat incomplete. Ego is actually one extreme of the pendulum, and the other extreme is insecurity. Ego is, I can do everything, I am God. So ego, what does it is basically? Ego means, ego is what edges God out. E-G-O. That means, we have no place for God left in our life. So in one sense, ego is like Mayavad. I can do everything. But the opposite of that is not humility. The opposite of that is insecurity. It is, I can do nothing. I can do nothing. I am nothing. So in between is humility. So humility is, I am something and I can do something. None of us are God, so none of us can do everything. But we are something and we can do something. That's why there will always, for us as finite beings, there will be tension between the certainty and uncertainty. That certainty that we are always parts of Krishna, we will always have a part in Krishna's plan. But uncertainty, exactly, we don't know that, we don't have the whole picture. Certainly we don't have the whole picture at each moment. So we'll have to see, we have to pray, we have to consult, we have to wait, and gradually we learn. Now in Bhakti, we won't go towards Mayavad and Shunyavad, but for us insecurity means we may think that my service is worthless. That there are so many, even in every group, every community, there will always be stars. So there may be superstar preachers, there may be superstar managers, there may be superstar counselors. And as compared to them, we may start thinking, my service is worthless. So now, yes, it may be true that we may not be able to serve the way some other devotee is serving. So we may not say, I can do nothing, but we may start thinking, oh, what I can do is it really worth it? Whether I do it, I don't do it, what difference is it going to make? What I'm doing is so small, so why do it at all? So, it's like I don't have any significant place in Krishna's team. That is insecurity. Now, on the other side is ego is like Krishna is lucky to have me on his team. Now, no devotee will speak like that, but the idea is some people think that, they think the whole devotee community is blessed to have me in the community. And everybody, they are devotees, but they are all ignorant and incompetent. Unless I am here to organize things, to save things, to arrange things, everything will fall apart. No, we are not a blessing to anyone. We are blessed by Krishna, and to the extent we remember that we are blessed by Krishna, to that extent we can give Krishna's blessings to someone. But so in the devotee community also, this ego and insecurity can come up. Where ego is thinking that it's almost like I know what is good for everyone. And insecurity is what I do, what I know, what I can do, what is the use of it? It's so small as to be worthless. But humility in a devotee community is that as a devotee is, I have a part. So let me play my part. It may be small, but it is not worthless. So this way when we understand that, so now what exactly the service that Krishna wants us to do? As devotees, we can always keep learning. We can keep learning about ourselves, not just about the world, but about ourselves. That, okay, I thought I had this ability. In some areas we may overestimate our ability. And we realize, okay, I thought I was very good at this, but I realize I'm not that good at that. Some areas we may underestimate our ability. We realize we had not really considered this important, but maybe Krishna has gifted us in particular ways. So learning more about ourselves can also be a service to Krishna. Just a few days ago, I gave a talk to teenagers. So the title of the talk was, I don't agree with me. Making sense of the opposing voices inside us. Like, I don't agree with me. That happens sometimes. We have one thought one time, another thought another time. Now, it's not just that these are all disruptive and destructive thoughts. No, there are different parts of us. And if these parts do not come in dialogue, then what happens is, manahashasthani indriyani prakritisthani karshati. Will be pulled apart by our mind and senses. But if we maintain that desire to serve Krishna, then we will be able to move forward. So humility means we have a finite vision. And our finite vision is of value. It is not worthless. At the same time, our finite vision is not the final vision. So, if you forget everything from this class, this one point, our finite vision is not the final vision. So let's use our finite vision to understand as much as we can, to learn as much as we can, and to make the best decisions that we can. But if with our finite vision, we can't make sense of what is happening in our life, we can't make sense of why when we are trying to serve Krishna, things seem to be all going unfavorable in our life. Why our service is not producing results. Then let's not consider that this vision is the final vision. That Krishna has a plan which is far bigger than what we can see right now. If we understand this finite vision is not the final vision, then in due course of time, that we will realize that what happened to me actually was what happened for me. Right now I may think, oh, this happened to me, that happened to me. Why did this happen like that? Why did this person do like that? And those are valid questions. But Krishna can work through them. So what happened to me can seem just a part of the chaos of the world. This happened like that happened like that. But with time, as Krishna's plan works in our life, we'll start seeing that what happened to me actually happened for me. That it was for my good. Maybe after this talk, when you go home, wherever you go, you can spend some time and think of some incident which 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you thought was terrible. Why did this happen to me? But now with distance, when you look at it, maybe it happened for us. Maybe at least 1 or 2 incidents you can see like that they happened for our good. Something good came out of it from there. So what we have seen in some ways, it will happen more in our life. And in that way, when we study the Bhagavatam, when we see here the great sages also getting agitated by the questions, but then giving reassuring answers, we understand that it's the eternal process where sometimes even the wisest of souls, they can get disoriented by life. But they reorient themselves and keep moving closer to Krishna. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. Broadly, I discussed how these 3 things. C was the context, Chit. The context is that there are these 2 great sages who are having a discussion. And this is a discussion that has happened in the shadow of the Mahabharata, and especially Krishna's departure. And in that shadow, this discussion between Vidura and Maitreya is happening. So the discussion is, initially he seems to be Choditaha, is agitated or stimulated by the discussion. Whichever meaning of the word is Choditaha we take. So what is it? It seems the questions he's asking is very basic. Why would a wise person like him have questions like this? So then we discuss the implication. So the implication over here is that, I talked about based on 10.8 and 9 in the Gita, that even the enlightened keep enlightening each other. Because we are enlightened in the sense that we know that Krishna is the ultimate object of love. And yet, we keep enlightening each other in the sense that, how does Krishna love me? How am I meant to express my love for Krishna? So that is something which we need to keep learning. So enlightenment is both a destination and a journey. And what this means is that during learning, there is a combination of familiarity and novelty. That it is the familiar that is reassuring. But it's only the familiar, it will become boring. If it's only the novel, it will become disorienting. Do I even know anything? Is this something which I'm meant to know? We'll just feel. But if there's a combination of familiar and novel, then what happens? The familiar is reassuring for us. It's like we have a home to come back to, and that's reassuring. And we have new places to travel to, that is stimulating. So in general, in our learning, both are required. We discussed similarly about this, that when we are going through life itself, in life, some people focus on the specifics of what happened, and some people focus on the principles, the inferences that they learn from what happened. So ideally both is required. So the Vidur-Uddhava Samvad is more about the specifics of what happened, specifics about the memories of Krishna, and the Vidura-Maitreya Samvad is more about the universal truths of life that are being discussed. And then finally, the takeaway for us was that when we are functioning in life, for each one of us, what is Krishna's plan for us? It's not easy to know. So when we talk about for a devotee, there is, with respect to Krishna's plan, there is a sense of certainty that nothing that happens is outside Krishna's plan. Krishna always has a plan for me. But at the same time, there is uncertainty. What exactly is Krishna's plan for me at this time? What does Krishna want me to do right now? And this is in between what we have, a devotee had jigyasuna, the word. That is, we have curiosity, the eagerness to learn. And associated with that is our own attitude towards ourselves. We can have ego. If we think we know Krishna's plan, that will lead to ego. I know everything, I am everything. That is Mayavad. I know nothing, I am nothing. That is Shunyavad. That will lead to insecurity. But even in Bhakti, ego means I know what I should do, I know what everyone else should do. So that is like Krishna is lucky to have me in his team. And I have insecurities, I have no role to play in Krishna's team. But what we need is humility. And humility in this context means that we understand that our vision is finite vision. So the finite vision is not the final vision. So finite vision is important, no doubt, but it is not the final vision. And if you are open to wait and watch, then Krishna will reveal to us what happened to us. That we feel something bad happened to me, but actually what that happened for us. In fact, this is the journey of life where enlightenment comes for us about what happened to me actually happened for me. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Is there any quick question anyone has? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you for a wonderful class. It's enlightening. Satchit Anand. Prabhuji, you presented that concept of God, that God as a protector and God as a one who empowers.
Yes.
So this God as a protector looks more attractive than God who empowers. So how to sync with this idea that a God who empowers a living entity?
Why do you feel God as protector is more attractive?
Because whatever I create a mess and He solves that problem, instead of He empowers me to solve my own problem.
Oh, in that sense. That's an interesting way of looking at it. Because in many ways, God as protector can also seem a little bit more forcing us into a passive role. That, that means my intelligence, my autonomy, my creativity, they have no role at all. I'm just here and God will do everything. So I think it depends on the point of reference, where a person is coming from. But yes, if it's like many people want a relationship with God. But their idea of, they have their terms of a relationship with God. What is the relationship with God? It's my intelligence, your power. That means what? I will make plans. I know how to make my life better. I know how to take things better. And Krishna, I don't have the power to implement this, but you use your power and make this happen. Now, generally, those are not the terms that God agrees for a relationship. So it is quite often that Krishna gives us intelligence also, and we are meant to use our intelligence. But in real life, our intelligence is finite. And when we work, it's very, very rare that we make a plan and everything goes according to plan. Yes, we can try to make ironclad plans and we can try to make them work. And but that's a part of our service to Krishna. But it is that our plans don't always work. So the idea that Krishna will fix our problems, that is a very passive idea, because it is not the basis of a real mature relationship, a rich relationship. Like a child creates a mess and the parents fix the mess. That's one way of a relationship. But the child is not meant to remain a child forever. The child is meant to grow up and take responsibilities. And the adult child, they take responsibility to shoulder the burden of the parents. So that's like in any relationship, there is the love that guards, and then there is the love that guides. So love needs to evolve. So initially, for example, a child burdens the shoulder of the parent, and the parent loves that. If a child is small, the parents carry the child. And that's a part of a loving relationship. But eventually, what happens is, the child is meant to shoulder the burden of the parent, not burden the shoulder. So shoulder the burden means that we share the burden that the parent is saying. That's how our relationship with our spiritual master should be. That's how our relationship with our spiritual guide should be. And now, of course, nothing is a burden for Krishna. But still, Krishna has a plan for this world. And Krishna wants us to play a part in this plan. In many ways, the Mahabharata is a more realistic vision of how life in the world works. In the Mahabharata, Krishna is not the central hero. It's the Pandavas. They are the heroes. And Krishna is the empowerer of the heroes. So life is more like that. That Krishna is there. He's very much present, and his presence has to be appreciated. But ultimately, it is we who do things. If you look at Srila Prabhupada's life, Srila Prabhupada did not put too much stock in supernatural miracles, in the sense that something happened against the laws of nature, and then that is seen as proof of divine intervention or something like that. Most of Srila Prabhupada's life, almost all of it we can say, is where things are happening within the laws of nature. But the cumulative result is extraordinary. So, Prabhupada focused on that principle. When we say Krishna empowered Prabhupada, that does not mean that Prabhupada didn't have to face challenges or setbacks. Lots of challenges and setbacks. But Prabhupada pushed on through those things. So yes, Krishna wants us to grow up. Yes, Krishna can fix our problems if we make a mess of things. But ultimately Krishna's approach is that I will not fix your problems, I will fix you so that you can fix your problems. Okay? Thank you very much. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaura Premanand.